So these are not by me. This is an artist I really enjoy on Instagram. Whoops. Organize my space here. There we go. So she's done a lot in just like video games, and I think she did some character design work. But she has a real strong sense of anatomy. She has like, I feel like 2 or 3 different art styles where she can switch from like really realistic anatomy and then into her stylized stuff. So I love this idea where she's got her shape, like her leading shape theme, and then she's basing these body types off of it. So we're going to do something similar today where we're going to take the anatomy knowledge that we have, we're going to pick a shape idea, and we're going to do this kind of setup where we can practice using those shapes along with our anatomy. So we're not going to be like master copying these. We're going to make up some of our own. I should grab some paper while I was at it. Here we go. But I just wanted to show that as a really nice example. And she's not really going too detailed into the muscles, which I like, but she has enough that you can tell she knows what she's doing. So particularly, I like how she's always using the collarbone, no matter how heavy or how slim the character. She's always got that collarbone lined up right with the shoulder. And then in the legs, she's always got indications of where the knees are, no matter how thick or thin or chubby or fit. And then also, you know, her ankle bones, elbows, all those bony landmarks are visible no matter which body type it is. And then she chooses to accentuate just some of the muscles depending on her shape idea. So I like how this girl's forearm is really skinny and then just bulks up right at the end, right there. Whereas this like really larger lady has these huge forearm muscles in there, but it's still the same idea of having a thinner wrist and then bulking up. And then the chubbier lady, even though she's rounder, she's still got a straight versus a curve. We were talking about that last week, where a straight and a straight's no good, a curve and a curve's no good. You have to have that straight and curve working together. So I really like that. So we're going to keep some of those things in mind as we try out our own. The first one, we're going to do real sleek, the Flash, somebody who runs really fast. As soon as I get my paper oriented here. There we go. So I'm thinking of real lean. My shape idea is going to be kind of this real long inverted triangle to help me think of fast shapes. So right away I can use that for the general gesture, the general shape of the body. Just get my triangle right in there. Whoops, so faint you can't see it. Let's darken my camera. I'm gonna turn a little blue, but better than not seeing the lines. So I'm thinking of this as general shoulder area, general end of the torso, to try to fit it on my paper. I'm not going to go so literal as using this shape for every part of the body, but I'm going to stick in a neck and a head shape. I'm going to use some gesture lines for where I want the arms and the legs to go. Let's have one arm over here. Maybe he's, I don't know, carrying a boombox or something. I have one arm up there. And maybe he's walking down the street. So I'll have one leg out in front and maybe one leg out in back. Stepping like that. So just real loose idea of what the pose is going to be. And now I can start applying some of my anatomy, keeping that real long, lean kind of shape idea in here. So I'm going to go right into the neck area. And like I was pointing out before, that pit of the neck with the collarbone right to the shoulder is one of my favorite parts because it's so easy to start with. clean that up a little bit. So I'm using two parts of the neck, one going down from the head and one going from shoulder to neck. And then I get to put in my shoulder muscles and try to keep it so that I have a nice long lean shape. So no more raindrops. For this shoulder that's going up, I have to think of that muscle curving around the arm. And then bony landmark, always super important. So I'm going to jump right over to the elbow, get in my bony landmark, and then just fill in. Since I already have a curve on top, I'm going to go for straight on the underside. Oh, here's Michaela. Let's let her in. And did I record? Yes. Whew. Almost thought I forgot.
Hello.
Hello.
It's nice to see you.
Good to see you all. Well, I can't really see you, but it's good to hear your voice.
Yeah, that's nice. My sister said she might join, but I don't know.
Yep, that's okay. She can join if she likes. If she's too busy, that's okay too. So before I figure out the bicep area, I'm going to go ahead and do the lower part of the arm since it's going to overlap anyway. Oh, here's Stephanie. Let's let her in. So I've got that long, lean shape, and I'm just going to have a little bit of muscle at the end. And then I can just fill in that extra bump for my bicep. Then for my hand, I'm just going to do a real simple one with the block first, no fingers.
My sister said that she wants to, but apparently, like, her boyfriend made the account and she doesn't know the password, so she has to wait until her boyfriend gets home.
Oh well, that's fine. Maybe for the second class. Then I can go ahead and add the fingers grabbing whatever they're going to grab. Something here, we don't know what. Then we know around the armpit area, we're going to get the chest muscles. So I'm going to try to keep that also long and lean, not too bulky. Super simplified. And anything beyond the chest is going to be the back muscles. Coming down. Just a little bit of review. You guys can try to catch up or just wait for the next one. That's up to you. Then I don't usually worry too much about the hip area until I get the legs down. So I'm going to jump down to the legs. And we can probably see the bottom of this foot. So I'm going to put a really simplified sort of shoe shape. With the heel and the top there. If you want to try and go for an actual barefoot, go for it, but I figure toes are just too fiddly for what we're doing right now. So we're just going to stick a shoe on there. And then I remember that I've got my ankle bone, so I'm going to stick in that little ankle bone before I continue up with straight lines where there's the shin bone and not a whole lot of muscle. And somewhere in between this hip and this ankle is going to be a knee. So somewhere in the middle there, I'll just indicate where I'm going to put my knee. And that's going to have those nice angled lines. The back of the knee, not so much, a little more straight. I'm trying to keep this lean shape in all of my muscle design, so I'm going to try to keep that sharp. Then for the thigh muscles, we'll have again, kind of in reverse, that shorter line and then a longer line back up to the hip. And I can come around that hip joint and connect everything back up. And for the other leg, kind of the same thing. I'm going to start down here on the shoe or the foot. Got my toe box, that little wedge that goes right up into the ankles. So I'll tell you where your inner ankle is. And between here and here, I have to find a knee somewhere, and it'll probably be around the same area as that knee anyway. Stick in my angled lines for the bone landmark. Back of the knee a little straighter. We're going to keep that muscle up and away from the ankle so that we'll have a little bit of straight here. And this one's pretty much tucked behind the other, so we can't see much of it. And then for the arm, we've got our shoulder here, and our shoulder is going to separate the bicep muscle from the tricep muscle. I'm just going to stick in the one we can see the most right here. Still trying to keep a long shape. And then same thing for the lower arm. We're going to do a long, lean shape. For the hand, I like to start it without the fingers sometimes. It's a little easier, just the wedge. And then you can stick on your fingers, having straight lines on one side, curved on the other. Whoops, I'm sticking out a little too straight. I'm going to collect all the fingers into a mitten shape, save some time since this is just practice. And if you want to practice your contours, how would the clothing wrap around? You can choose a horizon line, probably in the middle somewhere, let's say there. Anything below this horizon line probably going to curve down, but remember our bodies aren't cylinders, so the curve doesn't go like this. That's just going to turn them into a beanpole. Our torsos have a side and a front. So if you take kind of that abdominal portion that we sometimes block out, that's going to be the front, and then it'll curve around the side. Subtle difference, but a difference nonetheless. Let's say this is a boot. Slight exception here because it's coming toward us. Go up that way, this one going away from us. Let's turn that into a belt, so we'll do one more line. Because this shirt sleeve that I'm about to draw is so close to the horizon line, we don't necessarily want to make it curve up and around. That's just a little too much. So it's going to be quite subtle of an oval. And this one, because it's coming toward us, going to be a little bit more open. And the collars of shirts are actually sewn in a dip, so this will still curve down. It won't curve up even though it's above the horizon line.
That's kind of a form-fitting shirt. Do you think that there should be some slack in the back?
Oh yes, definitely. I missed that. Thank you. So it would be hanging off the back, right? Let's say it's tucked into the belt. It might move off in there. Cool.
I like the little fold you put in the belt because you can still see the shape of the person.
Yeah, I like putting in those little things so that it doesn't just look like a potato sack, right? Like there's nothing underneath, yeah. So for those of you who came in a little bit later, we're looking at this artist's use of anatomy in different body types. I think I showed this a couple weeks before, but we're going to try it ourselves. So we're going to try some different shape ideas and apply the anatomy that we know to some different body styles. So let's do a thicker, chubbier one. I'm going to move my paper a little to the side here. So our shape idea is something like a trapezoid. We need a pose, a gesture, so I'm going to start with a head a little further down on my paper here. I'm going to do a shorter figure. Thinking of my shape idea, I think I'll have the jaw get wider than my initial circle. And then maybe twist the body a little bit. So I'm going to stick in a shoulder there and a shoulder there. And use my shape idea. Get wider as it goes down. Now we can use this as a belt line or we can use this as a hip line. That's kind of up to you. I think I'm going to use mine as a hip line. So from there, I'm going to add on some legs real quick. Maybe holding on to a purse or a bag of some kind. And the other arm, maybe holding on to some sunglasses or something. Something up here. I don't know what yet, but there's my gesture, my general sketch. So obviously not human proportions, but we're still going to apply our anatomy as if it were. So I'm going to lighten up my sketch a little bit here so you can see the new lines that I draw. I like to start with the neck. Remember, I'm going to put in some twists, so I'm going to put the pit of the neck a little over to the side. There's the V part of the neck. And after the V, we might have a tiny little bit that goes out to the shoulders. That tells us where the collarbone is, so this will go out to the side. And then we know that's where the shoulders will begin. Since we're not doing as angular of a shape this time, more of a rounded character, I can round off my shapes a little more. Maybe we'll make this one a lady, so I'll add her chest in here. Right from the armpit. Super loose and sketchy. I'm going to use that center line all the way down so I can keep myself on track here. So then for the arm, we've got the shoulder. Time to find the elbow. So somewhere along here there should be an elbow, probably right where my line bends right there. So I'm going to add in my little bony landmark. And just have that flow right into the shoulder. And then for the lower arm, we need one straight side, one curved side. Since the pinky is likely going to be here, this side will probably be the straighter side. So I can connect that up. And for the other side, I don't need a real definitive wrist. I can just flow. Since our shape is thick, I can bulk it up there. But we'll keep the hands the same size. As people gain weight, their hands don't necessarily get bigger. They might get chubbier fingers, but they don't increase in size. So I'm going to keep the hand around the same size as it would be for somebody who's lean. I'm just going to indicate some fingers in there, no big deal. Maybe throw on some kind of bag. Maybe this lady's at the beach. We can use clothing to our advantage, and we can just use the contour of the swimsuit start differentiating those legs. And even though these legs are really abstract shapes, we still have to find a knee. So I will still have to indicate about halfway down where the knee is. And the muscle and fat is still going to be thicker near the hip, and it's going to get narrower near the knee. It might not get as narrow as these knees over here, but relative to this body type, it'll be thicker near the body and thinner near the knee. You can do that on the other side too. Indicate a little knee here. The back of the knee on a skinny person might be here, but since this person is larger, we're just going to move it out and still use what we know of anatomy, just on a wider scale. Ankle bones are always going to point up and inward. So the outside one is lower and the inside one is higher. So I'll put my ankle bone there, ankle bone there. Still keeping most of the muscle of the calf at the top. Even though it's really compressed, really thick, same rules still apply. On the other side, not as much because that's the bony side. For feet, we'll have that heel in the back. Remember that wedge of the foot is going to come onto the inside. And then we have our toe box. I'm just going to put a toe here and a toe there. Ninja Turtle toes for right now. We'll do that same thing on the other side. We need a heel. We need that wedge that goes inside, meaning this is your important overlap right here, is that the foot line goes inward and this one to the outside. Add some toes. And then for this raised arm, we have a little bit different position. Let's start with the things we know. We know the elbow is going to be angular. And we know on this lower arm we're going to need a straight line and a curved line. So you have to decide you're going to put the curve on the top or the curve on the bottom. Part of hanging flesh is that gravity is going to bring the curves downward. So I tend to favor the curve on the lower side. And you can go from that elbow right back into the body. And let's skip drawing eyes by making some nice big shades. Iris Apfel style. And then we can put the back of the hand and the straight part of the fingers on top. Touching these sunglasses, adjusting them. Curved lines on the bottom. I'm just going to fold the rest of her fingers so that's easier. Little angle in there. Then I skip over to the last finger. Curve. And connect it up. You might have a little thumb sticking out there if you want. You can be a fashion designer for a minute and design the top of the swimsuit here. And we have a few minutes if you want to add a little face or some hair or something. Go for it. These are just practice drawings, but sometimes it's fun to finish them off. Give her a crazy hairdo. Maybe some flip-flops. Whoops. We did a skinny one, we did kind of a chunky one. Let's do one more. If I find another piece of paper, we'll do a more superhero body type. Actually, let's just go vertical since this is my last one. So first we'll gesture draw. Where do we want this guy to be posed? Put a head on here. The twist is nice, so I can decide if I want this shoulder closer or the other shoulder closer. I think I'll pick that one. You can do a classic superhero stance maybe. Super sketchy, super quick.
Oh, hey Betsy, what is next class again?
At 5. Story art.
Okay.
It's all based on the feedback you gave me last week.
I gave you feedback?
Michaela did, where she was saying that she wasn't sure how to go from the thumbnail to a finished background. So that's what we're going to do today. Those in-between steps that I neglected. If you want to do a quick measurement, make sure that the top of the head to the hip connection is roughly the same as the length of the legs. And then we'll start bulking this guy up. So we're going to start with the neck. I like starting with the neck. Do you have to start with the neck? No, of course you don't. You start where you're most confident, but I find the neck to be easy, so I usually start there. So right down from the sides of the head, we've got that V part of the neck. Let's sketch that in lightly. That's going to give us the pit of the neck where the collarbone starts. So even though I made this huge circle for his shoulder, that's not where his shoulder is necessarily going to go. Because now my collarbone is telling me that anatomically, his shoulders have to start beneath that collarbone. I'll get rid of my circles there. Other part of the neck goes from that collarbone right back up. If you want to exaggerate it even more, you can have it curve upward for a little extra muscle. Let's do that since we're going for superhero type. So I've got my collarbone. That means the shoulder is going to have to start below that collarbone, and we can make a nice big shape. Really bring it out there. Within reason. If it starts looking goofy, then go ahead and bring it back in. And we know from many weeks ago that the shoulder muscle actually connects right back into the collarbone, so that can give you an indication of where this muscle ends on the bottom. And we know that the chest muscles go underneath, so I can start sketching in general chest muscles. And because he's turned, this chest muscle is going to overlap that shoulder muscle, and we can get rid of that little bit of shoulder muscle line. And anything, actually let's go ahead and put in the arm muscle, then we'll know where the back muscle starts. So we've got elbow. On the elbow side, we're going to have that muscle located closer to the shoulder. And then the front, it would be opposite. So if these were check marks, my check marks would go like that and like that, opposite to one another. Short then long, long then short. Then we can add some back muscles, a lot more than we did on our previous ones. I'm also going to make the front part of the torso. There's that first, this is the first row of abs? Might be, might not be. I know there's a little bump there. That's all you need to know with anatomy. There's a bump there. Over to the other arm, same thing. We want this inner muscle, this bicep muscle, to be long and then short. And it goes right to the point of that shoulder muscle. So this entire thing is just the front of the arm. We won't see much of the back because it's turned away from us. But there's the elbow. You might want to do a quick check, make sure your elbows are somewhat in the same line with one another. And over here we had the upper arm that's coming close to us, so it was going to overlap the lower arm. But this way it's opposite. We're actually going to have the lower arm overlapping the upper arm. So I'm going to start out straight where there's the wrist and then bulk up the muscle. You can do it on the other side too. You just have to make sure that it's a different curve or a little bit more angular than your curvy side. And the bicep is going to go right inside there. Oh, whoops, I just finished saying that this one was going to overlap the other one. Sorry about that. Back over to this first arm. Let's choose where this arm is going to land. I didn't quite plot out my hands very well, but there's the edge of his body, so his hand's going to be there somewhere. And you can take your more angular side and your more curved, muscly side. Still leave room for wrist. And then for the hand, I'm going to start off with the shape before the fingers. Kind of curve it there. And then I like to start with the straight side. You can do it for each finger if you want. Looks a little bit like spider legs at first, but then we'll fix it up. Whoops, little finger. Since it's straight on the top, we're going to do curved on the bottom. Remember, fingers are probably going to overlap, so you don't have to draw each and every individual finger. Whoops, mine got a little chunky there. A little earlier we were talking about how bodies aren't just perfectly curved, they've got a front and a side, so you can take basically from the chest muscle down, this is all going to be the front side. So if you wanted to draw some abs, you've got your thoracic arch type thing going on there. And you're going to continue that middle line in segments. And then we remember the one that's near the belly button is usually fairly level, and then the one above it is going to lean upward more. You can change your contour over here too, if you want. You can add the bumps for each segment. And if you want to add those little muscles on the side, you can add a couple in there. Looking pretty good. So on these legs, first I'm going to decide where my hip joint is. I'm going to say it right about there. So there's the torso. Probably going to run out of paper, but that's okay. I'll just stick one underneath. Going to double check if I still have enough height here. Woo, right down to the bottom of the paper. Barely made it. So somewhere in this leg line I have to have knees, and they're going to generally be in the middle. Maybe slightly higher because we do have the height of the foot to take into account. I put a couple of triangles down here. Whoops, let's get it on camera. Whenever one is pointed toward me, I use more of an equilateral triangle, and then when it's pointed away from me, we got the longer wedge, the doorstop type triangle. We have to remember that this is in a 3/4 view, so his torso is going to block that part of the leg, but we still can see his knee, which is going to have those angular lines. A little flatter in the back. Depending on how muscular you want the legs, you can also bulk this out more before it gets to the knee. And then our same old, we've got our bony side, shin side. That isn't going to do much except flow down into the foot. And then on the other side, we've got our calf muscle. So this big, strong guy can have big, strong calves. Still the same rhythm, still keeping all the muscle bulk at the top, less near the ankle. Going to end in that little ankle bone. Three parts for the foot. We've got the heel, and then we have the wedge that goes right up in between those ankle bones. If you remember those old stirrup pants back in the 80s, that sometimes helps. And just think of that stirrup going right around there. And then we've got the toe box. Do the same thing on the other leg, just from a front view. So we've got that knee to block in. We'll have the sides of the knee this time, or not so much on that side, but on this side, yes. And those muscles are going to start getting thicker and bigger away from the knee, and as they go towards the knee. You might remember there's that wedge of muscle that we talk about a lot. A lot of times the triangle was really small because we were doing slender type characters. It'll still be located on the same landmarks. It would still be way up here on the hip bone and come all the way down to the knee, but because he's more muscular, it's a way bigger triangle. Same thing on the calf. We're going to bulk out the muscle and then bring it in lean. Ankle is low on the outside. Probably can't see the heel very much, but we can see that foot wedge going right in between the ankle. Big toe. All the other toes are going to be smaller, so I'm just going to put a wedge on there to indicate that. You can just cut up that wedge if you want to, and that'll give you your toes. And I like to zoom out and just double check that everything looks about the same muscularness. I have a feeling this arm is getting a little scrawny, so I'll probably bulk up this arm a little bit more, just bring down that line. Bring up this line. Easy fix. Just about 10 minutes left, so if you want to design a little superhero costume and give him a face, you're welcome to do so. If you have any questions, I'm right here.
Can you put like biker shorts on him?
Sure.
Just so I can see if the the curve. If it's his legs turning toward, how will I make the curve of his shorts?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So if this is coming toward us, muscle bulk is going to be above the knee, so that's going to be the apex, I guess, of my curve. Zoom in here.
It's a good thing to think about.
If you decide to curve it down, same thing. It still have the apex of the curve right in front of that knee. Just depends on where your horizon line is set. I have a feeling our horizon line is fairly low, so it'll probably curve up. How do I know that, right? Betsy, how do you know if the horizon line is high or low? This one is depending on the feet. We can't see a whole lot of the top of the feet. Like normally when we're drawing feet and they go down like this, and you can see a lot of the top. That means the horizon line must be
Did I hear a
higher.
meow?
That's probably my cat.
No. Whereas this one is a little more pointed forward, particularly these toes. We can't see the top of them, so I have a feeling that our horizon line is probably down here by his calves. So yes, the shorts will curve up, and the bulk of the muscle is right above the knee, so we'll probably have lines going up that way. Whoops, I didn't like make them the same length. That's a crummy tailor right there. A little more even. And then again for the torso, fairly flat in front, and then it's going to curve around to the side if I go right through his hand there. Let's say he were wearing just a regular t-shirt. Instead of scooping it down like we normally do, I would probably shallow it out just because the horizon line is so low, and make it a little more like that instead. Figures with tiny heads will look stronger, but if it looks deformed, you can always bulk out the head as well. You can always bring this out more. And he'll go back down to normal size. Just about 5 more minutes.
You see mine okay?
Oh, you need to get your video bigger.
Oh.
Hey, look at those body types. Nice.
Wait. Here, I'm trying to focus the camera.
Wow, that's really
Yeah, I can see
cool.
pretty good.
Okay, good.
That's really cool.
That was good. That was good shapes.
Good shape to play with, right? Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
I just kept playing with the fat girl. I had so much fun.
That's Let's see how she came out. Let me spotlight your video for everybody. Hey,
Oh.
look at that!
I had fun.
She's having a day out, huh?
Uh-huh. Fun with him too.
Ah, nice.